ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Candace Cooper, joined by my Monday host, Kenton Gibbs. You can find him at TGIF_Kenton. You can find me at Candace D. Cooper. We're so excited to be back in the building after a very fun weekend of football. Let me tell you, ACC got a lot to cover today, but first, it's also the week that the NFL starts off. The NFL season is really here. You got to follow us at Locked On Podcast Network. Now through September 8th, Locked On's Ultimate Season Preview is taking you through every team in every division with the help of Odyssey's Ross Tucker and Jason La Canfora. Follow the Ultimate Season Preview 2021 feed on the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts to tune in beginning August 30th. Ken Gibbs, I hope you had a great weekend. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it was a great weekend. I celebrated the 40th anniversary of the chartering of my chapter, Yo to the Good Noops. But other than that, I had a great weekend, unlike a lot of teams in the ACC that played this weekend. So, all in all, I can't complain. I had a long 5-day weekend, took 2 days of PTO off from work. So, it's been a great weekend start to finish.
100%. And listen, we have so much good football to go over. We don't want to waste much time. As I mentioned last week, all of our co-hosts have their assignments. And so Kenton Gibbs starts us off with some of these great Atlantic schools who by far have been some good, some bad, some very much a head scratcher. So let's get right into it. Starting out the weekend, we thought it was going to be a big banger for Clemson and Georgia. That was the one that everyone circled on the calendar. And yet here we are wondering if that was the game. I don't know if you guys tuned into Notre Dame and Florida State last night that we'll talk about with JJ Jackson tomorrow. But Clemson, Georgia was one of the mediocre games of the weekend, in my opinion. Kenton, can you give me immediate thoughts there?
Well, I just want to start off by saying you said we got a lot of good football to talk about. What football were you watching? I don't know if we were watching the same football if we got to talk about the ACC after this opening weekend. But, the Clemson-Georgia game is a prime example of what I tell people about a lot, where people think that I like low-scoring games as opposed to good football. There's a difference, right? Even as a defensive lineman, I know there's a difference between good football that happens to be low-scoring and just really bad ball. And the Georgia-Clemson game, it wasn't about, hey, the offenses are doing everything right. It's just the defense. No, that was two really anemic offenses. Those offenses, I don't know of too many upper echelon Power 5 teams that either one of those offenses could have moved the ball against with the way that they were executing.
Well, fair enough. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I was just going to go on to say, even without the sack numbers, Clemson was in well under 50 yards rushing. Well, I want to say well under 40. So, that game was a really, really tough. And then Georgia as well, their running back who made the caption talk about, I don't play with kids. Guess what, sir? You didn't play enough to get in the end zone. You got 15 carries for 70-something yards, but you didn't sniff the end zone. So maybe delete the captions, get back in the lab with your offense. Who knows? But, that was a very just – poor execution on both offensive ends, but kudos to both defenses for showing up in the way that they did.
No doubt. And speaking of offenses, a lot of talk and conversation had been around DJ Uiagaleilei and JT Daniels, both finishing with maybe mediocre stat lines. DJ having 19 for 37 for 178 yards, and JT 22 for 30 for 135 yards. All the hype was built around this next, set of really quality quarterbacks, people being in the Heisman conversation. But, we evaluate them. I certainly say they underdelivered. Now, did they have as many weapons as they would probably have liked? Joseph Nagata, Justin Ross, Braden Galloway, to name a few on the Clemson side. I don't necessarily think that they jumped off the page as well, but DJ just seemed like he wasn't in his element as opposed to what we've all built the hype around.
Every Heisman candidate performed poorly this weekend, except maybe Desmond Ridder and the gentleman from Texas. I don't really count Bryce Young because, you shouldn't be a candidate just for being in the position where they know you're going to put up numbers. at a university where it's like, y'all are going to be the best team in America. That's not really
why. That's literally, I mean, sorry that
does not
Alabama is
seem,
okay.
That doesn't seem fair to me, because at the end of the day, I'm looking up and I'm saying, okay, so if this gentleman is the best player in America, the Heisman should go to the best player in America, to me.
Sure.
There have not been nearly enough defensive players to win the Heisman to begin with. Let's start there. Sure. But now, if we're saying that the Heisman is, even if we're saying it's strictly offensive, are we now saying that it only goes to the best player on the best team? Because if not, he shouldn't be on there. No other player that ain't threw a pass, ain't caught a ball, ain't ran a single touchdown, ain't scored a single rushing touchdown, ain't got a sack, not a single one was on that list. Everybody else, they had somebody to work with, and that's why even DJ Uiagaleilei, I'm a little bit Big Cinco. I don't know if you belong there. I told people all off season, and they thought I was crazy for saying this. His leading receiver, again, this is no shade, I dislike Big Cinco, but the fact of the matter is, the gentleman's leading receiver from last year, receptions-wise, was Travis Etienne. So what does that say? It doesn't necessarily mean you're doing all dump-offs, because Etienne was the type of guy you could use him all over the field, but you had a certain level of comfort with a guy who was a matchup nightmare. He was flatly a matchup nightmare, because if you try to match him up with a corner, what they're going to do is motion him back into the backfield, run the ball. If you try to match him up with a linebacker, perfect. That's what we want. If you try to match him up with a safety, we could go either way about it. What is your safety bad at? We'll expose that. So, I mean, it's a very interesting situation with these Heisman candidates, because I'll tell you what, a lot of Heisman hype is looking like Heisman hot air at the moment.
I 100% agree. Again, I think DJ started out, we all have high expectations. We've seen, Clemson be such an elite team at this point. We put them with Trevor Lawrence and company. They have always been top of mind, top of conversation. So all the pressure was on DJ. He had an underwhelming performance to start out, but not enough grace was given, in my opinion, to game one. Week one, people still trying to figure it out, realizing that you don't have the same weapons that you once did. But I think there's plenty of time to bounce back. And as I was reading an article about Clemson, it says that, DJ's right back in the lab. He's ready to go to work. So you only go up from here, right? The bar is pretty much a little low. It's not in hell, but it's close. So I think the only way he can go is up.
I would say it is. I mean, you scored 3 points the entire game, and you gave the other team their only touchdown in the game in a pick six. All in all, your offense came away at net negative 4 points. The bar is below hell, honestly. It's in Dante's ninth circle. The one that's bitter cold, that's where the bar is at the moment.
Sure. Well, we also had some quarterbacks who, on the flip side, did do well in the ACC. Want to give them a second of highlight. Boston College beat Colgate 51-0. Phil Dracovic had 303 yards on the day. Zay Flowers looking great and very smooth in his company with 135 yards. I think it was just one of those, of course, you get to play a marshmallow team to start out. You always look great. But to blank someone out of the season is always nice. And there's some other teams that we will talk about and get to that as well. ODU played Wake Forest, lost 42-10. Wake Forest, in their groove and rhythm again. They dominated with 348 total yards, 184 passing yards, and 164 rushing yards. Still think that they are finding their way, and they also had some great guys. Jashin Davis, I believe, ran the ball really well. Sam Hartman doing his thing per usual, 18 for 27. It was a good game management quarterback situation, but I never thought Sam Hartman and DJ Uiagaleilei would be in the same breath having the same yards on the same weekend.
I mean, at the end of the day, if we're being honest with ourselves here, again, Sam Hartman has a more proven, fleshed out body of work than DJ. Mm-hmm. This isn't something that I'm making up here. Now, if you're projecting for talent, sure, you can make the argument that DJ is gonna be much better. He has the capability to do more things, and he'll have better weapons. Those arguments can be made. But if we're talking body of work to this point, I don't know why you're surprised. I mean, that's not really. Yes, he put up huge numbers in the 2 games we played, but that was last year against Boston College, who, outside of their linebacking core last year, that defense was terrible. That defense was god-awful last year. So
yeah, well, I also think that it speaks to how we play people up in the media, and we'll certainly talk about some other teams here in a second. But as much as we hype around Clemson and for DJ to deliver and be the second coming of Trevor Lawrence, it kind of makes it even a worse storyline when we have to go in on him come Monday or Sunday after their games.
I don't think the thing is sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves and admit that we in the media and people as fans, they carry expectations that are grandfathered in that don't make sense. You had Deshaun Watson, one of the all-time great college quarterbacks. All-time great. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's one of the best to do it. You go from him to Trevor Lawrence. Lightning struck twice right there. Mm-hmm. You got two generational talents pretty much back to back.
Well, you also had my man's name in here, Kelly. There was a little blip of Kelly in there. And Trevor Lawrence came in and saved the day.
But if we're talking about who and what the Clemson fans are going to hang their hat on, those are two, right? Those are two. If you're going back to what Taj Boyd was, which is what I think Big Cinco is a little closer to. I think he's a little closer to Taj Boyd than Deshaun Watson. And here's the thing. When I say that, certain people are going to get offended. Certain people are going to think I'm cracking a joke. If you look at what Taj Boyd was while he was there, he was a darn good quarterback. He was a darn good quarterback. He wasn't some scrub. He just was not Deshaun or Trevor. And so that is what I mean when I say the expectations are unrealistic, because people have these recency biases to where they can't even imagine the world where Taj Boyd was good, when in reality he was really good. He was really good, and he had the benefit of being the first. He had the benefit of being the first one to really win there. So his level of expectation, he could have a bad game, and everybody was like, it's all right. It's okay. We still build it. Allow that for DJ. Allow him to have that bad game and accept it's okay. He's not Trevor. He's not Deshaun. Trevor and Deshaun, again, very rare situations. So let this young man be who he is. Let him grow into his own. I know it sucks to see your team go from winning every game in the regular season to losing their first game and only scoring 3 points. But guess what? It's okay. It's life.
100% agree. And the best game, I think, coming out of the Atlantic, or at least one of them rather, was NC State, starting off the week for us on Thursday, 45-0 against USF. And while, sure, USF is not the team that's going to, jump off the page or make you jump when you're nervous about playing an opponent, but I think that we saw a little bit of just how good NC State could be. Right? Total yards, 525. Devin Leary, 17 for 26. Bam Knight, Ricky Persons going, touchdown for touchdown, right? I think everyone was in the conversation on Thursday for the Wolfpack. And then you have a defense who was able to blank, the USF team. And to me, if there was ever a time for NC State to insert itself being atop of the Atlantic, this is the year. Because you have a Clemson who doesn't really know themselves well, right? They're still figuring out this new team. You also have a Florida State who put up a great performance against Notre Dame, but it was like Notre Dame did everything it could to kind of give that game, keep Florida State in it. I think NC State has the opportunity to be the best in the Atlantic and maybe flat out win the ACC.
I'll say this. I've maintained this all year. I've maintained this all off season, especially after seeing the announcement of Emeka Emezi coming back. If NC State does not get 10 wins this year, then we know what Doran's absolute ceiling is. We know that if he can't win in the words of Sierra, if that boy don't love you by now, he ain't never, ever, ever going to love you, girl. Well, if we can't get to 10 with everything that's going on right now, the ACC looking as bad as they did week one, it's a double-edged sword for the NC States of the world, right? For the Boston colleges of the world, for this reason. If you can get to 10, or let me not say if, this is looking prime for the taking for you to get to 10, right? But on the flip side, if you can only get 7, with the conference looking the way it's looking, and a very interesting thing, and this goes for NC State and Boston College, even though they're in different situations, because Halfley just got there and he's just getting everything going. But I mean, as far as like this year right now, what I'm looking at with them, both those games were blowouts. Everybody said, "Oh, they're glorified scrimmages." Let me tell you something. Beating the bad teams, whooping the wheels off the bad teams, that's a step in becoming champions. That's a step in becoming really good teams, because bad programs will play down to the worst teams that they play, and then they'll play up to certain really good teams. And historically, that's what NC State has done.
Yeah.
Historically, Boston College has done that to some extent. So the wheels off the teams that you should whoop the wheels off of, that's part of the process. And both of those teams did it. Both of those teams looked really good in doing so. Of course, they'll have more difficult games coming up. NC State is traveling to Mississippi State, who I don't know what they're about after seeing them against Louisiana Tech. I don't know if the first half them is the real them, or if the second half them with a little assistance from the Zebras out there is the real them, but who knows? So both of those teams are in very peculiar situations in that way. I don't believe that Boston College is quite there yet. So I believe that NC State has a chance, but I don't want us to be the overreaction crew that the Monday after the first week we're like, oh, ding dong, the witch is dead, Clemson's gone, because they're not. They're not. I can promise you, they are not done. They're far away from done. So, Dabo said he quit if players start getting paid. I don't know if he was being the man of his word last Saturday and decided to take the day off, but that team's going to come back with a vengeance going forward the rest of the season.
Fair enough. Do you know 85% of people who play daily fantasy sports lose? Is that really surprising? The game is rigged against you. You're playing against thousands of other lineups, not to mention experts who have more tools and more time. You don't stand a chance. Introducing StatHero. It's the first ever daily fantasy sports book that puts the player in control and winning within reach. Here's how it works. StatHero shows you their lineups and dares you to beat them. It's you versus the house in a head-to-head fantasy matchup. You name your stakes, winner takes all. You have the advantage. StatHero is showing you their lineups ahead of time. No one else does that. You are in total control. StatHero is DFS the way it was meant to be, one-on-one. Play StatHero now and change the odds. Go to stathero.com/lockedon, sign up for free, and right now you can get 3 times back your first play. They're giving you a 300% match. That's unheard of. Go to stathero.com/lockedon. That's stathero.com/lockedon. On the show today, Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack talking to me about weekend's matchup. Labor Day weekend was full of goodness, and another team he covers is Louisville, who has yet to play. They will play Ole Miss tonight at 8 p.m. I believe it's on ABC. Correct me if I'm wrong. But either way, you have another good game that we'll talk about again next week. But let's get into the coastal side of things, who certainly... if you don't feel like the Coastal is shaking things up, I just don't even know what to tell you. Let's start with Miami and Alabama, another game that everyone had circled only because it's a SEC versus ACC matchup. Let's kind of see where ACC falls under Alabama. We knew that Alabama was going to whip the wheels off Miami, but we were just praying it wouldn't be too detrimental to De'Aaron King's health, right? Really wouldn't expose Manny Diaz maybe too badly, but Devontae Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles, former Alabama standout, called it that Bama was going to beat them by 30. They ended up beating them by 31. So I would love to know, Kenton, if we knew it was going to happen. But did Miami show you any sort of okay, there's life there? Maybe they're still one of the better teams of the Coastal, if not the best.
Here's the thing that, again, I don't like overreaction Sundays or overreaction Mondays. I want us all to be honest with ourselves about what our teams are and are not. Okay. And with that being said, a part of being honest is not just being honest about when you're bad. Part of that's being honest about being it's good. Now, people see Miami lose to Alabama by 30, and they're all, oh wow, that's a really bad team. They can't do nothing with them. Let me read off some scores from the 2020 season for Alabama, shall we? Alabama was 13-0, okay? Texas A&M, who everybody believes is one of the better teams in America, 52-24. Ole Miss, 63-48. Good job, Ole Miss, to put some points on the board, I guess. Tennessee, 48-17. Mississippi State, 41-0. Kentucky, 63-3. Auburn, 42-13. LSU, 55-17. Arkansas, 52-3. Florida was the closest to beating them all year. They lost by 6, and they put up 46 on them, 52-46. Other than that, the 2 playoff games now, they beat Notre Dame by 17, and they beat Ohio State by 28 in the national championship. Let's put this in perspective. They won the national championship by 4 touchdowns. 4. The second best team in the nation is 4 touchdowns worse than them, or was 4 touchdowns worse than them last year. Miami will be fine.
We also can consider the fact that, they looked in championship level form out the gate. They didn't have too many hiccups throughout that game. There wasn't a moment where I was like, ooh, okay, we still got to work. Like, of course, it's not going to be perfect because they didn't blank anybody, but damn. Out of all the schools we looked at this weekend, they were the only team where I was like, damn.
I knew coming in, and that's why I said last week, and you criticized me for it, and I'm glad that De'Aaron comes out fine. If I was Manny Diaz, I would have put De'Aaron in bubble wrap week 1. I would have said, listen, we're going to lose this game by 4 touchdowns either way. With you, without you. We're going to get the doors knocked off.
Okay, to your point though, I think defensively they were in the game, and then Bubba Bolden got that targeting call and release, and it was really kind of a done deal. He's your best player on the field. It's a different kind of energy when your best player is out there. It rubbed things differently.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you that losing Bubba Bolden was a big blow, and that penalty coming when it did definitely helped that drive become a scoring drive. However, regardless of how you get there, for anybody who is a Disney or Marvel fan, right? If y'all watch the show What If, right? The last episode was about Doctor Strange, and he kept trying to change a moment where they said it's immutable. Regardless of how you get here, regardless of what you change to get here, the final result will be what it is. It's the same thing for playing Alabama. Regardless of how you get there, you're going to lose that game by 3 or 4 touchdowns, okay? Unless you're one of the best teams in America and you're having one of the best games, everybody's having one of the best games of their lives, you can go ahead and book it. 3 touchdowns. That's the minimum. 3 touchdowns. That's what you're looking at. So
that's tough. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, the reality is, regardless of the health of De'Aaron's knee, regardless of Bubba targeting or not, regardless of losing all those defensive linemen to the NFL, regardless of Miami's receivers playing underwhelming football, which they've been doing for some time now, which I've told everybody, their wide receivers are very underwhelming. Their backs are mediocre. Regardless of all that, Alabama was going to win this game by a lot. The tide was going to roll, and they did.
They absolutely did. Two teams that we can mention, not spend too much time on, but certainly at the bottom tier of the Coastal, Duke losing to Charlotte, the 49ers, 31-28. And that was the first time Charlotte had beat a Power 5 program in school history. Coach Healy is one that we have to maybe keep our eyes on when it comes to these next round of hires, because certainly people are going to move on. So there was some talk that you could go to Duke, and to me, it's like, oh, he's a little above Duke, level. But this is probably the Coach Cutcliffe retirement tour. I'm not going to hold y'all. I love Coach to death, but I think that it's certainly something that he, as much as we want to say the situation, how football is played today, how the game is run today may have passed him, and that's cool. Sometimes you got to know when to hold them and fold them. Another game we want to highlight, Northern Illinois playing Georgia Tech, beating them 22-21. Jeff Sims going out in the second quarter with an injury, coming back with a sling, so he was unable to return. A lot of hype built around Jeff Sims this season. Jameer Gibbs, another guy that we thought was going to go off, had a little, shaky game for sure, but you don't put Northern Illinois in the conversation. You don't give them a chance to win. Coach Collins definitely had to answer for why you even had a close one, let alone a loss to a Northern Illinois team who, as you had talked about with the group chat all week, had not won, 1 to 2 games in the MAC all year? last season.
Yeah, they won one game in the MAC last year. Let me tell you what Georgia Tech did, okay? Georgia Tech is a lot like, there's a common thread amongst Georgia Tech and the Detroit Lions, and that's Calvin Johnson. Let me tell you why both of those teams did the same thing in some regard, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you're going better, then you've been in program history, right? Georgia Tech went to an ACC championship game, and they were around 7, maybe 8 wins. Good year, get up to 9 wins with that triple option.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody said, "Oh, it's a high school offense. It's a high school. Oh, we're tired of the high school offense." No, now you're seeing a high school offense. That's what you're seeing now. The triple option it's not exciting. It's been around for forever and a day. It's effective.
It is.
You cannot
all the time.
You cannot properly prepare for that. You cannot properly prepare for that in 4 to 5 days. You can't. You can't. So, with that being said, I'm looking at this team and I'm very simply saying this is why I say we're going to celebrate the teams that beat bad teams, because that's part of the gig. That's part of the gig. You got to beat bad teams. Georgia Tech failed to do so. Duke failed to do so. And granted, they're both bad teams in their own right, but still, bad Power 5 is supposed to tip the scales a little heavier than bad Group of 5.
That's
and
fair.
They didn't. And they didn't. And granted, Charlotte's not a bad team. But still, you're Power 5. You're supposed to do what you got to do what you're supposed to do there. So, I mean, Cutcliffe, hey, more power to you. You know, you're taking your shirt off and everybody's talking about how Jacks are looking and all that. And that's cute and all, but you still got to go out there and win some football games. You still got to coach a winner. Jeff Collins, you're moving the team away from the high school offense. Well, show and prove, big dog. Show and prove. You can't. I mean, you know, and I understand he's fairly new as well, but at what point do you know, like I said, the Lions looked the prize horse in the mouth with Jim Caldwell, and we said, oh, he's so bad and we can do better, and boom, Patricia. Georgia Tech looked the prize horse in the mouth with, I want to say it was Johnson. Oh, the offense is ugly. Oh, we can't recruit the best talent because the awful. Boom, Collins. That's what you get.
Yeah, I agree there, but I also think that it spoke more to what Dabo Swinney said back when we were talking about expansion and playoffs. 12 teams are not good enough. And if you told me that we would have arguments and conversation for 12 teams that could compete with Alabama, we would be wasting our time. So I think that showed, you know, the Power 5 losing to some of these G5 schools. It just speaks to more and more about how it really is a lot. The tier of dropping off is so great nowadays that it's almost laughable as why we try and make it, you know, a fair playing field.
I mean, to me, yes, the playoff would be the same situation it is in the FCS, where North Dakota State wins it basically every year, right? But again, if you're saying, oh, we shouldn't expand it because of competition with Alabama, with just the 4 teams, the average margin of victory last year for Alabama, 17-28, you put those together, you get 45. So on average, they won the games by about 22.5. I mean, it doesn't matter how many you have in the playoff. It doesn't matter if you don't have a playoff. If that's what Alabama is doing, if that's how prolifically they're rolling at the moment, I mean, it's nothing you can really say for, well, we should abolish the playoff. Okay, good. They're going to beat the other team in the BCS championship by 30. We'll expand the playoff. Okay, they'll get a bye week, and then they'll beat the next 2 teams by 30. I mean, it's at the moment, that's just where we are in college football. And for all the people who said they didn't watch women's basketball because Connecticut was whooping the wheels off everybody for 100 games straight, 100 games in women's basketball was basically 2.5 seasons. We've seen this out of Alabama for how long?
A good minute. An absolute good minute here. Well, we are going to round out the show talking about Virginia Tech and Carolina by also mentioning one of the best games of the weekend, according to Kenton. He's going to share that with us here in a moment. But did you know that Built Bar has 9 delicious flavors? When you talk to a Built Bar fan, they're definitely passionate about their faves. If you don't know the Built Bar flavors, well, you're missing out. Between peanut butter brownie, mint brownie, raspberry, cherry, and more, there's something truly for everyone. If you haven't tried all the flavors, you can get a mixed box where you'll get 2 of each of the 9. Most of the flavors have 17 to 18 grams of protein, between 130 to 180 calories, and only 45 grams of sugar. So not only are Built Bar flavors the best tasting, but they're healthy too. Order today and get that raspberry mint brownie or whatever you like. Go to BuiltBar.com, use promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. That's a LOCK15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. Get all the latest odds, props, and contest information, including online's $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest, open now at BetOnline. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus. Be sure to take advantage of their opening day super promo. You will make a bet on the Thursday night season opener between the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 for new customers only when signing up and using promo code NFL100. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait and take advantage of all the great offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is your online sportsbook experts. Finishing up the show here, talking about the Coastal Games, and didn't want to not mention Virginia Tech, who got the big win on Friday night against Carolina in Lane Stadium. Certainly held it down. A lot of question marks going into who was going to be sitting atop of the Coastal. Too much hype given, in my opinion, to Carolina. And certainly Virginia Tech was ready to mellow them out, and they did just that. The run game from Burmeister and company was one to really just, let's get excited about. But then Coach Fuente, certainly with some play calling, made it a Carolina opportunity to get back into the game. Kenton gives your immediate quick thoughts here.
It's not often that I gloat in being right. I'm a liar. I do it often. But with that being said, I told everybody, I said, I don't know why y'all believe in Sam Howell in this way. He is not this dynamic playmaker that regardless of what you put around him, what he does, everything is going to be okay. He's not that guy.
Okay, wait. I don't think Sam Howell had a bad game. I think his playmakers and I think his offensive line had a terrible game. I don't think he did great, but I'm just saying, to say he's not a playmaker, I think that's a little excessive.
I didn't say he wasn't a playmaker. I said he's not the guy that no matter what you put around him, he's going to be okay. I think
you just said he was you said he wasn't a prolific playmaker.
Yes, a prolific playmaker at the level of no matter what you put around him, he'll be all right. He's not that. I've seen maybe 4 guys in all of my life that I've seen in person where I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter what's going on. He going to make his plays. He going to make his plays, okay? Only 2 of them were quarterbacks. One was Lamar Jackson. One was Deshaun Watson. Because to me, if you're a quarterback, you need everybody to do their job right, or else you have to be an I'm sorry, De'Aaron King was another one, so 3. As far as ACC players go, I've only seen 4, and 3 of them were quarterbacks. With that being said, he's not in that caliber. And with that being said, this game was a surprise to me because I didn't know that Virginia Tech was laying like that defensively. I mean, I was shocked. But also, let it be known that I was also right about Virginia Tech's offense. I said Braxton Burmeister can't throw the ball to save his life. He had 1 deep ball to Trey Turner, and that was it. That was pretty much it. Everything else was within 15 to 20 yards of the line of scrimmage. Everything else. So, I mean, and it wasn't even all that precise in that area. So, the fact of the matter is, I don't like week 1 overreactions, but if I'm a Carolina fan, I'm pushing a panic button right now. Because
really?
Virginia Tech did not do anything that they don't have the horses in the stable to overpower you or overwhelm you. They don't have that. They did not have the type of strategy to where it's just like, hold on, wait, we haven't seen this before. They're going to hurry up. They're throwing 3, 4, 5 different formations per drive at you. You don't know what's coming. They didn't do that. And Fuente did everything he could to give that thing away at the end. And North Carolina still couldn't get it done.
Sure, but I think it was to me, I think it was a coaching issue. I think they got outcoached because, like you said, it was ABC 1, 2, 3, and yet somehow, some way, Carolina had nothing for them. They had no way to respond. I think it goes back to when you're getting ready for the season. Why can you still not tackle? Why can you not wrap people up? That missing tackles is unacceptable. I don't care game 1, game 12. You should not be missing tackles the way that they were missing it. Why are you running around the field with your head cut off, acting like you don't know your play or you can't make your play? Like, to me, that was just some basic fundamental things that makes for a long Sunday and Monday for the group, and it should. Because if you can't get the basics down, how the hell are we supposed to be telling you that you're going to be sit atop of the Coastal? What Kool-Aid were you sipping, and why do you always have to get humbled for you to now be hungry? Carolina always has to drop out of the top 25 to feel like they have a chip on their shoulder. Every time someone tells them they're good about themselves, they feel it way too much, and they always suck. Almost immediately after. It's tale as old as time. And I think for anyone who covers Carolina, anyone who covers ACC, anyone who covers this triad of football, you knew what time it was. I don't think anybody who really is in the weeds of this was surprised.
I agree with you to an extent, but also, again, I don't know why people saw how much Carolina was losing and was like, oh, they'll be fine. Don't get me wrong. I think Sam Howell's good. I think he's pretty good. I don't think that you can throw me in with whoever at wide receiver, I'll be fine. You can throw me in with an offensive line that couldn't block nobody on Twitter, and I'll be okay. There's not that.
Fine,
and that's exceptional. And that's not a knock against Sam. Because a lot of people take that as, oh, that's me hating Sam. Sam is a good player. You're generational. No matter who I throw you around, you're going to be okay.
As much as I'm going to let JJ talk about UNC fully around tomorrow, I do want to harp on the fact that Virginia Tech's front line did their job. They definitely protected Burmeister and gave him opportunity, and having that senior leadership was there. As much as we talk about Carolina, there's nobody in the trenches that jumps off the page. Jeremiah Gemmell's great, cool. Azudu is great on the offensive line, great. But there's nobody that as we're going into the season, that we're like, okay, these big boys are going to hold it down. And so I think that's ultimately why that was Carolina's undoing. But to wrap up the show here, I would love to know, Kenton, what was your favorite game of the weekend?
It's close for me. But I'm going to give it to the obvious choice in the Florida State Notre Dame game. I don't like the Jordan Travis erasure that is happening, that people are acting like Jordan Travis was just completely abysmal and he was the reason they were trailing, and McKenzie Milton comes in because of the helmet play and everything goes right. Because, all in all, look at Jordan Travis's results and look at McKenzie Milton's. What are we like? And you could say all day long, well, the kicker missed the kick. Okay, how many yards did they gain? Why did he have to go out there and kick? Literally 3 plays into overtime. So, but that was a really, really good game. Maybe don't call for the execution of your players next time. Or if you're going to quote unquote that surrounding something as controversial as execution, maybe get it right. And Notre Dame played their same brand of football, just very physical. Cone was very good. In this game. Other than his only interception came on a Hail Mary. Other than that, he was phenomenal. Yeah. And that's what I mean when I look at that game and I say, this is not a game of people playing poorly. This is a game not a game where the scores are high because defense are playing poorly. If you look at some of the plays that Hamilton made, right? People look at Jordan Travis's interceptions and say, oh, look at his interceptions. If you watch those interceptions from Hamilton, those are plays that if Jordan Travis makes that same pass every week, he gets maybe for the rest of the season 3 interceptions, maybe. You do not see safeties reading a play, running from one hash to the other, running from outside the hash to the other, out to the numbers, basically the sideline, to make an interception. You don't see that. Jordan Travis didn't make a bad read. The defender just made a NFL, Pro Bowl, possibly Hall of Fame caliber play. and you live
And
with
that's
that.
great. But we only have 2 nice things we can say about Notre Dame because they are not in our conference. All right, great.
I mean, listen, I've given them my nice things. I told them physical, cone, and the safety. So I gave them 3. But Florida State, is Florida State going to be consistently this, or is this their one-off? Because we remember their one-off last year was against the Tar Heels. They had that one game where they showed up and everybody was great, and then all of a sudden they faded back into oblivion immediately after. So, is this team, are they good, or is this a good game? Enjoy your game, a little game, I guess.
Well, we'll have a lot to talk about throughout the week. Thank you so much, Kenton Gibbs, for joining us again. If you guys have not seen, you can follow him at TGIF_Kenton. Folks, can you remind them where they can find your podcast?
You can find me at LO_Wolfpack on Twitter, at Locked On Wolfpack, wherever you're listening to this podcast right here. It's going to be a great time. We've got a lot to discuss going forward because 2 teams that we play coming up here played each other in Louisiana Tech and Mississippi State. So I have Brett Freelander on. I'll have some other guests on, and we'll have a good old time before next Saturday's kickoff.
No doubt. And if you guys are betting throughout the season, it doesn't have to be a guessing game. Listen to the new Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Get daily picks, blowout specials, and wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow the Locked On Bets podcast, brought to you by BetOnline AG, wherever you get podcasts. For Candace Cooper and Kenton Gibbs, we hope you have a great rest of your week, and until next time.